Representative from the Generation for Societal Change, and apparently he is Holy Race brother. So I would suggest that
he is our brother. Efe,
no, hold on, I'm not Ibibio.
one
So
Nigeria,
I am Delta.
one Nigeria.
What happened to
Forget
Delta,
that.
Ibibio, it's not South.
The next topic of discussion should be on, tribal tolerance.
Which tribal tolerance?
So
We
you will
are
not
all
start speaking.
South,
You will not start speaking your
all
local
of
dialect
us
in the
na
studio when you
South,
know
South.
very well that I cannot understand what you are saying.
Sorry.
All right, this is the National Core
Welcome.
Values, and it feels good to have Joseph Ugo with us in the
Yeah.
studios this afternoon to talk about a very topical issue that bothers on religious tolerance. Of course, it is a vital national ethic and value that is indeed necessary for our peace. So, religious tolerance stands as one of Nigeria's most critical foundations for national unity, and in a country where Christianity and Islam each claim roughly equal followings alongside traditional African religions and other faiths, the ability to coexist peacefully isn't just admirable, it is essential for survival as a unified nation. So one would say that the definition of religious tolerance is relative. It all depends on what you understand.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you make of
depends on your
being
perspective,
religiously,
yeah.
religiously tolerant, towards one another. But I'll start with you, Joseph. What do you make of religious tolerance? How best would you describe it?
Like you mentioned, it's mostly relative, but then there should be like a standard benchmark for what we understand as religious tolerance. It is mostly about recognizing other people's religious beliefs sincerely. They are really what they believe in, and having respect for them, even though they are actually very different, sometimes abstract from what we may relate to, but understand that this is what they believe in, this is what they hold sacred, and respect it to that extent. So, yeah.
Okay, but it appears it's a bit difficult for us in this part of the world, especially to tolerate one another, especially when it comes to our religious differences. Why is that? Are we blaming the clergymen for that now, or it's just who we are as a people?
I think the fact that we are a very diverse society still plays out even in religious tolerance. The fact that we have very distinct cultural sentiment. We're raised, in different regions, and all of these things, political affiliations, all of that. I think they have a role to play. They've played a lot of role in what the level of tolerance we have towards each other religiously. As well, we also have clergymen who are, regardless of the religion, who have been misinformed or who are not well informed enough because
By who?
maybe because of how they themselves too were raised. So if you have a clergyman who does not understand the importance of tolerating other religions, when they are leaders in their respective places of worship rather, they will not properly emphasize on the importance of living in unity or tolerating other people's religious
Right.
belief and respecting those boundaries. And that is where you have people who say very extreme things towards other people's religion, and those other persons who obviously find it offensive and retaliate, and then it goes off. So
continues
yeah,
like that.
exactly.
Okay, so now in essence, would you say that religious tolerance in essence also has to do with the background of where we come from, like where you grew up in? For instance, like you come from this family who you are brought up knowing a particular doctrine
Yeah.
and practicing a particular religious lifestyle. How do you describe that?
Yeah, so within that setting as well, if you raise up the religious sentiments of a family, how the members of that family, particularly children born to those families, would be able to interpret their relations with other persons from other religious organization or bodies or sects. And so when you raise people to believe that your religion is superior, your religion is the right one, which is what every one of us believes, but you could now say, however, this is what other persons believe. To that extent, respect them, to leave them to their belief, but in you, this is what you believe, and you begin to culturally groom or teach them, the extent to what extent they can say certain things about, other religions.
religion.
Yes, and yeah, and so and then the consequences of saying very extreme things too. So allowing them to know that this is what happens when I don't respect other people's faith. And then when you point a gun at another person, how would you feel as well if the same thing is said to
It's
you?
done to you.
So we should be aware. They should from the earliest stage. We should teach everyone, kids in their sex, family space and all of that, to understand this is what you believe in, but people who do not believe in what you believe in are not entirely your enemy. Away from their religious affiliation, what are their own value system, how are they members of the society, contributing their quota to the growth. So looking beyond all of that, and then let's know, okay, this is the boundary, this much and no further. Yeah.
Now, when you talk about bridging the gap of these two, would you describe intermarriages as one of the keynotes that is thriving to bridge that gap?
Okay, I am going to quickly make a reference to something, if it's not bad. I don't think it's bad, but it's a sensitive subject, especially with this question you asked.
Okay.
While I was in junior secondary school here in Abuja, I had it was such an interesting setting for me, because for the first time in my life I saw I had classmates who were from both ends of the major religious groups in Nigeria, which is Islam and Christianity. And so I had classmates who had a mom who's a Christian, or a dad who is a Muslim, and then they are both married and raising a family together regardless of the difference. And I thought it was such a unique thing and was such a beautiful thing to see. And so that kind of a setting, you find out that persons from such families would have deeper understanding, and then they even find the similarities in their religious practices, and they are able to get along well with every other person. In fact, I had teachers in school who were married to persons from different religions. So a male teacher is married to a Christian if they're Muslim, or a Muslim teacher is married to a Christian. So it would foster a lot of it will allow us to really understand that this is just they are just very other people like ourselves, and so respecting that boundary. So I think it's a very interesting thing, and I don't want to get into it, but it's such an interesting side to see, and it also helps in fostering the country.
Okay, now, sorry, it's not like I'm diverting from the main focus, but I just want us to clear something so that whoever is listening to us this afternoon will understand where and what exactly we're talking about. We're talking about religious tolerance, right?
Yes.
Now, still on this religious tolerance. For instance, if you've given that opportunity for your partner who is probably not from your same Christianity or same religion, same religion, and probably you guys have gotten entangled and it has resolved to marriage, for instance, is it normal for you to begin to force your partner to practice your own doctrine?
I think it is a peculiar situation that has to deal with the both parties. I think that if you are dating someone and it's a conversation you both must have had before you go further, and I think adults should be allowed to think for themselves. So if two of them believe that they can maybe compromise for themselves or for one another, it's totally up to them. But you have to. It's a conversation that must be had by both parties, and it should be open.
All right. Dear listener,
thank
please, you must forgive us for not mentioning, at the very beginning of the show that this is an audience, a participatory program. So we'd like you to indulge us, call in, or even send in messages. Tell us what you make of the topic of discussion. We're looking at religious tolerance, a vital national ethic and value that is in peace. And at this point in time, just wondering your level of religious tolerance. Have you been treated badly or wrongly by someone who is of the opposite faith,
religion,
and how did you deal with it at the end of the day? Let me quickly share with you too a personal experience I had sometime in Sokoto State. And I keep saying that Sokoto State is my second state of origin, regardless of that experience. I was actually live on air where I had two clergymen
Okay.
in the studio. We're trying to see how we could use religion as a tool in dealing with, insecurity, because of the perceptions and notions that some of these insurgents, they just have a way of, indoctrinating people, telling them that, oh, this is the way of the Lord, and that's why they're doing whatever it is they're doing.
Yeah.
So a caller called in. First of all, the pastor who was in the studio, he tried to make, references, like Bible verses and all of that. But I knew all of these Bible verses quite all right. But I did not for 1 second, show that interest to want to assist him. You know, when you're trying to say, oh, 1 John chapter 1, verse, I just say 3, but I didn't say anything. So at some point in time, someone called and he was like, oh, my faith. Are you this or that, talking about my religion now? And I'm like, I'm sorry, you can't ask me that on radio. If you have questions, direct your questions to the guest. And then he insisted. Well, I said, well, for peace to reign, this is who I am. And then he called me stupid, and then he hung up. So at that point in time, I expected the clergyman in this to quickly clear the air and address that person, because that person is obviously his brother in the faith. But he didn't say anything. He just turned a blind eye. And I'm not going to lie to you, I was still a baby on the job, so it actually dampened my morale and all of that. But my colleagues, my bosses were very smart enough to just walk into the studio to, like, if you just maintain your steeze and composure after the show, we'll talk. And I was so dumbfounded by the whole display. Like, how could this really happen live on radio, on air? That's to tell you the level of religious intolerance
that we have
towards someone you don't even know. You only hear me talk on radio, but you've not seen me in person. And then the funny thing is, you can imagine the way I'm dressed right now. So if I don't tell you that I am not a Muslim girl, you won't even know. But most people actually think that I'm a Muslim girl because I just love to dress like the Northerners, would do. I've always been like this right from time.
Right.
But that just tells you how much of, not just education now, but the kind of message or messages that we are getting from our clergymen. Now, some Nigerians would tell you that.
I don't think it's not the clergy. I really don't blame the clergy at this moment. Seriously.
Why not?
I think it has to do with individuals. Now, let's look at it from another perspective. For instance, like those who are partisan now. You see what they do. You can never see me or you as an honorable member or as a rep coming down to that grass level to do what we perpetrate. So at this point, I don't think the clergy wouldn't tell you to go and treat that or say that to her on air. I think it has to do with our own individual differences of how we perceive religious tolerance. That's how I feel.
I beg to differ, but I think that it is all encompassing.
Yes.
The clergymen, they have a role to play. The parents, they have a role to play. Even the teachers, they have a role to play. Because I don't understand how a southern girl, for example, who is in the north and also schooling in the north, I don't know what the teachers are telling them. And the same thing is somewhat obtainable even in the southern part of the country, where you have Muslim girls in the same school where you have majority of southern, students. What are you telling them? What are you teaching the students? Are you teaching them to cohabit or coexist peacefully with the other person that is not of same tribe and religion with you? So the issue is, the issues are really hydra-headed.
No, it is.
And it didn't just start today. Some would say that's the reason why we are where we are as a nation. But I don't know if you think or you're optimistic that there is, a light at the end of a tunnel.
I'm just going to add to it, because I think I would use Lagos as a city that, because I've lived there. And it was one of the cities, because I moved to Lagos when I was somewhere in primary 5 or 6. Okay. And then in that time, I got into, after my primary school, I got into a public, secondary school. Okay. Now, this was a public secondary school in Lagos. And looking back at it now, it shows you how progressive we can be as a society. Okay. Now, in Lagos State, we had some days of the week, students from different religious backgrounds. We had days of the week designated for different religious assemblies. So let's say, for instance, on Monday it's a Christian assembly, Wednesday it's a Muslim assembly, Friday it's a Muslim assembly. We all stay on the same assembly. We listen to each other's prayers. We respect. So, and it's promoted a feeling of inclusiveness.
Togetherness,
Exactly.
yeah.
So I know that I'm not a Muslim, but I could understand that, okay, this is how prayers are made in Arabic, and I understand that, okay, this is because even after those on those assemblies,
Yeah.
we have short lessons, religious lessons. So I
Right.
can tell you categorically that this is a religion of peace, because I've heard firsthand what they are taught. And so, yes, Omoife, like you rightly pointed out, our clergy,
Have a role to play.
yes, a very vital
Very
role to
vital role.
play, especially in very rural areas where people do not have access to certain information and exposure. So people see some of their clergymen as the all-knowings, like kids. No, my teacher said it's like this. You cannot argue that with a child. My teacher.
Can we squeeze in this call?
Yes,
Sorry
please,
to bother you.
yes.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And thanks
What's your
for
name?
joining us.
Okay, this is Abuchi calling from Airport Road.
What's your name again?
Abuchi,
Abuchi.
Okay.
Abuchi.
All right.
Abuchi,
Abuchi.
Abuchi.
Okay,
Calling
go
from-
ahead.
All right, my quick contribution is this. When it comes to religious tolerance, in the first place, I think we need to understand
Are you there?
to understand the meaning of religion. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
We can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, please go
Yes.
ahead. We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you, Abuchi. Please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, all right.
Right.
So our religious leaders need a pivotal role to play. Let me talk about interdenominational crisis. You know, sometimes you see a particular denomination backsliding or backlashing the other one, like the other churches. I don't just want to call names, that the other ones we hold the key to heaven, those ones have blocked the key to heaven, those ones who worship Mary, those ones who worship cross, this, you know, what even interdenomination? You see this particular denomination calling them on this, and all these things are being caused by the religious, for what they preach in their churches.
Abuchi,
Alright, we
you might want to
must
call
start.
back to wrap up your thoughts,
Yes,
really.
because he's really making
Yeah,
sense. and we
I
need
think
to know.
even within the Christian faith,
There's a lot of
there's a lot of,
yeah.
you know, what's it called
Intolerance.
now? Yeah,
Let's use that
intolerance,
word.
like, oh,
Between
my faith
ourselves.
is superior to yours and all of that.
Yes.
Okay, so please go ahead.
I think it happens.
Okay, so we having an all-inclusive society that respects both religion,
yeah.
is very, very important for all of us to, you know, thrive, and it is necessary that it is taught in schools. Like my experience in Lagos, you know, in my school in Lagos was very necessary for me as a child growing. JS1, I was in JS1, so a few things still, you know, there are things I didn't understand until much later on, but I could relate with a person who was not of the same faith
Faith,
with me,
yeah.
because I could see there was no difference in that moment. And so it is very important that what we hear within the four walls of the classroom, what we hear in the home, what we hear in our places of worship, they are very, very important in determining how much the level of tolerance we would have towards each other, and the senses of maturity that are necessary for us to be able to, you know, work together as a country and as a people. Yeah.
Okay, now, so talking about that, right, I understand that even within ourselves, same religion, for instance, like same Christianity religion, right, in between ourselves too, we also have this this notion that I am a Catholic, you cannot invite me to a program to another church, you know, some sort of differences like that. And sometimes even when we are invited, you feel like, okay, I can't do this here because it's not my church and all of that. So there is also this intolerance amongst us, same religion. Now, as far as Nigeria is concerned, that's where they will tell you this one is happening to this state, is another religion that is doing it and all of that. It is allegedly because we are not even sure per se, but we just feel like, okay, because something happened to this church, for that reason we don't feel like another church will come and attack another church. So it has to be somebody else or the opposite religion that is doing that. And over time, we've grown with that mindset of seeing ourselves like, okay, we don't like ourselves. So that boils down to the point where Omoife said, everybody around us, leaders, clergies, have a role to play. So now my question is, what do you think now that can be done, in as much as we want to curb the issue of religion intolerance, to tolerate each other? What do you think? What are those things that you think can be put in place going forward?
I think, or I believe very strongly that, back to the experience I had in Lagos growing up, I think we should incorporate them in our institutions from the earliest years of a child's exposure to, education. Let that child know right from primary school that it is okay to be in the same class with a Christian. It's okay to share the same class with a Muslim. It's okay to share, these things with other people. And let's just see it as what it is. Religion is your faith. Your faith.
Yeah.
And leave it, once it gets beyond you, it is no longer your problem.
Yeah.
Now, we would live in if we respect each other's boundaries, if we respect each other's views. So let us have topics in our civil education, in our social studies, where religious tolerance is taught, so that if a child is taught in school that you have to respect each person's religious beliefs or faith, you have to know the boundaries of what you should say and shouldn't say.
Very important.
That child begins to hear it over time. And now if they are told otherwise, let's say by a clergy or an older person or an overzealous or extremist religious person, they will tell you no, or they would have a conflicted idea, and so they will seek answers.
Okay.
So when you have only one person feeding a child or feeding a person the wrong side of an information, over time it begins to, they begin to assimilate, and they manipulate people into believing these things. One would think that a religion is not a religion of peace because of what certain persons in those faiths do. But the reality is, look at their holy texts. What do they have in there?
Right.
These are religions that also teach peace. But you see the
tolerance also.
Thank you. But then you see persons who are practicing these things, they are not practicing what is in the holy text. So you should nurture a person enough to know these things, so that when they now get to the point where they can think for themselves, they can now know, okay, put these things side by side and juxtapose the differences, and know that, okay, this is what shouldn't say. This is a sensitive topic to talk about. It is very important. So we have to guard, because if you do not guard the mind early enough, you configure it to be a certain way, think a certain way, and act a certain way. And that is why you have persons who go extra mile to commit atrocities against other people, and as we are seeing in this country right now.
All right, Ugo Joseph, but no one is talking about the African religions. I mean, we should. How best can we extend this religious tolerance, towards because so far we've been focusing on Christianity and Islam.
It's not. I apologize for that. It is not in disregard to the African traditional religious practices that we have. Just for the information, it's just we focused a lot on Islam and Christianity because these are the most prominent one right now in this nation. But this does not mean that we do not have persons who are practicing this African traditional religious religion. I also believe that we should respect, just the same way we accord respect to maybe our Christian friends, our Muslim friends, African religious practitioners should be accorded the same religious respect now. Because
that is their faith.
Thank you.
That is what they've chosen.
It is their faith. Now, you should know that, anybody should know that, this person practices this. I shouldn't say these kind of things about what they do. I mean, it's your life, it's my life. I live in my house. You live in your house. So long as you're not forcing it on me, no one is saying you must practice what I practice. Then we should not have a problem. We should see people beyond their religious sentiments. What can you do? What value do you bring to the table? how are you contributing your quota to nation building? What incredible idea do you have to move the country forward? What can you do to make our world a better place? Let's focus on these things. A lot of us channel our energy into this religious difference or
negative part of it,
and we don't
forgetting
have
the
to.
positive part of it that can
these are
enhance
human
us.
beings.
Yeah.
These are human beings with different, things that they can contribute to the world. So yes.
All
Well,
right.
There's a lot really to talk about here.
Are we wrapping up soon?
Yep. I really wish
Okay.
we can, stretch the conversation a little further,
it's a
but
huge one.
time is not our friend, and we should probably have a part 2 of this conversation.
conversation.
All right, so we can indeed, dot the
Diversify
I's properly
into
and cross the
various-
T's
Yes.
and make it more, audience participatory. So people can
That's
call
it.
in and share with us if they've had personal, encounters with people, experiences,
they
and
can
how
just say
they were
it.
able to deal with it. Now, you don't need anybody to tell you that, this is what we can do really to change the narrative. One of such is what we're doing right now. This is more like an advocacy where, Ugo Joseph took it upon himself, and also the Generation for Societal Change. It is their mandate, as a matter of fact, to always go out